Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. This is your brother Lawrence. Recently, I shared with you a story of an Adventist pastor who was arrested and detained by ICE. Do you remember that story? Now, I have new update to share with you. By God's grace, the pastor, whose name is Pastor Raul Morales, has been released. Praise be to God. Here is the full story. Let's watch it.
After spending nearly 2 weeks in detention, Pastor Morales was finally able to return home to his family and reconnect with the church community he serves. According to information surrounding his case, Morales was released on Wednesday, August 19th, after an immigration judge set his bond at $12,000. And this is where the support of the church community became very important. Friends, church members, and people connected to Pastor Morales came together to help raise the money necessary for his release. The $12,000 bond was raised, allowing Morales to leave detention and return home. And there was a very touching moment following his release. When Pastor Morales returned home, he was wearing an electronic ankle monitor. So, although he was no longer behind the walls of an ICE detention facility, he was still under immigration supervision. But despite the circumstances surrounding his release, Morales appeared deeply grateful to be home. He was also seen with his Bible, preparing to pray. And I think that moment tells us something about what this experience meant to him. For Pastor Morales, this was not simply about being released from detention. It was about returning to his family. It was about returning to his church community, and most importantly, it was about recognizing God's hand through a very difficult period. Morales expressed gratitude to the people who stood with him during his time in detention. He thanked those who prayed for him, those who supported his family, and those who helped make his release possible. But let's go back to how this entire situation began. On August 6th, Pastor Morales was at George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston, Texas. He was preparing to travel with his wife to New York to visit their daughters. But instead of continuing with his travel plans, Morales was detained by ICE. His detention immediately became a matter of concern among people in the Adventist community. Many began asking questions. What had happened? Why was an Adventist pastor being detained? Would he be released? What would happen to his family? And perhaps one of the biggest questions was whether his immigration case would result in him being forced to leave the United States. As news of his detention spread, people began praying and looking for ways to support him and his family. The conference connected with Morales also spoke about his ministry. According to the conference, Morales had valid employment authorization and remained deeply committed to the church and to the families he serves. His commitment was described as unwavering. That statement was important because Pastor Morales was not simply viewed as someone working in the church. He was a pastor serving people, ministering to families, and carrying out responsibilities within his congregation. However, ICE has provided its own explanation concerning Morales' immigration situation. According to immigration authorities, Morales entered the United States legally in 2020. However, ICE says he remained in the country after his authorized period of stay ended. His temporary protected status also later ended. At the same time, Morales' attorney has stated that he has a pending asylum case, and this is an important point to understand. Pastor Morales' release does not mean that his immigration case has been resolved. His legal process is still continuing. He has been released from detention, but he remains under immigration supervision. That supervision includes wearing an electronic ankle monitor. So, while Pastor Morales is back home with his family and congregation, there are still legal matters that must be addressed. His journey is not over. But at least for now, he is no longer sitting inside an ICE detention facility. He is home. And I can imagine that returning home after nearly 2 weeks away must have been an emotional experience. Imagine being separated from your wife, your children, your congregation, your normal responsibilities, and the familiar environment of your home. Then suddenly, after days of uncertainty, you are able to walk through your own door again. That is the reality Pastor Morales experienced on August 19th. And perhaps one of the most powerful images from his return was seeing him with his Bible. While many people may focus on the immigration case itself, that moment also gives us a glimpse into Morales's personal response to what he had experienced. He said that his time in detention strengthened his reliance on God. And that is significant. Sometimes we only discover the depth of our faith when circumstances become extremely difficult. When everything is going well, it can be easy to say that we trust God. But when the future becomes uncertain, when we don't know what tomorrow will bring, and when we are separated from the people we love, faith can be tested in a completely different way. For Morales, this difficult experience became an opportunity to depend even more heavily on God. He expressed appreciation to the many friends and church members who prayed for him and supported his family. Think about that for a moment. While Pastor Morales was in detention, his family was also dealing with uncertainty. But they were not completely alone. People stepped forward. People prayed. People encouraged the family. And people contributed financially to help raise the $12,000 bond. That support ultimately played a major role in bringing Pastor Morales home. This story also reminds us that immigration issues are about more than paperwork and court hearings. Behind every immigration case is a human being. There is a family. There are children. There are parents. There are friends. And in this particular case, there is also a congregation that depends on its pastor for spiritual leadership and support. When a pastor is suddenly removed from his normal environment and placed in detention, the impact can extend far beyond that individual. It affects the people he serves. It affects his family. And it can create tremendous uncertainty for everyone involved. That is why the news of Morales's release has brought relief to many who were concerned about his situation. But again, we need to be clear. His release is not the end of his immigration case. He remains under supervision. He is wearing an electronic ankle monitor. And his asylum proceedings are still continuing. So there are still questions ahead. What will happen with his asylum case? Will he ultimately be allowed to remain in the United States? What will the immigration court decide? Those questions have not yet been answered. For now, however, Pastor Morales has something very important that he did not have during those nearly 2 weeks in detention. He has his freedom to return home to his family and to reconnect with his congregation while his legal case continues. And perhaps that is why his words about prayer and dependence on God are so meaningful. When Pastor Morales left detention, he did not know everything that would happen next. But he knew that people had been praying for him. He knew that people had supported his family. And he knew that the bond had been raised to secure his release. Most importantly, he believes God sustained him through the experience. His story is still unfolding. But for now, there is reason for his family, friends, and church members to be thankful. Pastor Luis Morales is home. He has been reunited with his family. He is back with the faith community he serves. And although the electronic monitor on his ankle reminds him that the legal process is still ongoing, he is no longer spending his days inside an ICE detention facility. He can pray with his family, he can hold his Bible, he can worship, and he can continue trusting God while waiting for the next stage of his immigration case.
So we praise God for Pastor Raul Morales and his family, all those that supported him. May God bless you. All right, so friends, thanks for watching. And if you appreciate updates like this and also want to stay informed about what is taking place in the SDA Church, I would encourage you to subscribe to this channel and press on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the videos I published. Until next time, may God bless you, may God strengthen your faith, and may God be your guide. Happy Sabbath. See you again.